Good afternoon. In the last 48 hours, our country has been set back in terms of providing equity and access in higher education. And as you heard from the President, today the Supreme Court ruled against more than 40 million working families. Let's be clear about who would have benefited from the President's student debt relief plan. Nearly 90% of relief would have gone to borrowers making less than $75,000 a year. 20 million Americans would see their debts drop to zero, with 20 million more seeing lower payments. This would mean fewer borrowers falling into delinquency and default when payment pause ended. We're not talking about the millionaires who benefited from the billions in tax giveaways a few years ago. We're talking about low and middle income families recovering from the worst pandemic in a century. I strongly disagree with the court's decision here. So today, I want to assure our students, our borrowers, and families across America, our fight is not over. We're taking action. The President, the Vice President, and I have put borrowers first from day one. We refuse to go back to the way things were before the pandemic, when 1 million borrowers defaulted each year and faced devastating financial consequences. So let me tell you about the actions we're taking today. Number one, we're going to open up an alternative path to debt relief for as many borrowers as possible, as quickly as possible. While we acknowledge the court's decision, we began the negotiated rulemaking process on settlement and compromise authority today. More information on the new regulations will come out shortly. Number two, today, we are rolling out the most affordable income-driven repayment plan ever. This new plan is called Saving on a Valuable Education, SAVE. It'll cut monthly payments in half for all undergraduate loans. It'll cut payments to $0 for millions of people making less than $33,000 a year. All other borrowers will save at least $1,000 per year. This plan will stop runaway interest, and it's not going to require you to pay more than you can afford. And number three, as the President mentioned, we're creating an on-ramp for repayment for up to 1 year for those who need it. This means, although interest will accrue starting September 1st and payments are due starting in October, we'll help borrowers who are struggling to make payments avoid harsh financial consequences such as delinquencies and wage garnishments. Borrowers who can make payments should. Again, I disagree with today's decision from the Supreme Court. Today, the court substituted itself for Congress. It's outrageous to me that Republicans in Congress and state offices fought so hard against a program that would have helped millions of their own constituents. They had no problem handing trillion-dollar tax cuts to big corporations and the super wealthy. And many had no problems accepting millions of dollars in forgiven pandemic loans. Like Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma had more than $1.4 million in pandemic loans forgiven. He represents 489,000 eligible borrowers that were turned down today. Representative Brett Guthrie from Kentucky had more than $4.4 million forgiven. He represents more than 90,000 eligible borrowers who were turned down today. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia had more than $180,000 forgiven. She represents more than 91,800 eligible borrowers who were turned down today. I want all the students and borrowers to know President Biden, Vice President Harris, and I will not stop fighting for you. You should be able to earn a college education without student debt blocking you from opportunity. That's why we're fixing a broken system. We're protecting the next generation by increasing college accountability, fixing public service loan forgiveness, and going after predatory college in addition to increasing Pell Grants. To date, we've approved more than $66 billion in targeted loan forgiveness, and we're not going to stop fighting. We cannot allow the setbacks of yesterday and today to stop us from reimagining a better tomorrow, one in which all students from different income levels and racial backgrounds have access to affordable pathways to college and career. Thank you.
Could you give us any details about how you plan to apply the HEROES Act? I'm sorry, the Higher Education Act to this, and it seems like if the HEROES Act was on legally spurious footing, this might be even more so. And if you're more secure that this is a legal route to do it, why didn't you just use this in the first place?
We believe the Supreme Court got it wrong today. We believe the HEROES Act does give me the authority. The Supreme Court made their decision today. We accept that. The Higher Education Act has a pathway, and we're going to use that pathway.
But if you think that's a better way to do it, why didn't you just use that in the first place?
We believe that the HEROES Act pathway was quicker, and we had the authority to do that.
The president said that this new path would take some time, that it will take longer. How long are you expecting it to take? And you also mentioned that more details will be rolled out. When will that be happening?
Sure. So it is a regulatory process, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Bharat, in a second. But that process does take longer, as the president said, which is why we started with the HEROES Act. We believe we had the authority, and we were ready to act, and it was stopped through a lawsuit right when we were going to provide the debt relief.